Screenwriter David Koepp is an illustrious name in Hollywood, providing screenplay for the likes of Steven Spielberg, Brian De Palma, Sam Raimi, and Ron Howard. He wrote Jurassic Park, War of the Worlds, and Indiana Jones' Kingdom of the Crystal Skull for Spielberg. He wrote Carlito's Way, Mission Impossible, and Snake Eyes for De Palma. He also provided the screenplay for Panic Room for David Fincher and The Shadow and Spider-Man for Sam Raimi. In recent times, he struck a fruitful collaboration with Steven Soderbergh with scripts for movies like Kimi, Black Bag, and Presence, a subtle ghost story which I've reviewed previously. I read somewhere that Koepp might have earned the reputation of a screenplay doctor, and he is the fourth most successful screenwriter in film history based on the box office earnings accrued from the movies he had written. Koepp have also been making movies of his own for the past 3 decades, many of which of mystery, thriller, and horror context. He had made Secret Windows and Mordecai with Johnny Depp, as well as Stir of Echoes and You Should Have Left with Kevin Bacon. Koepp's penchant for Bacon is prevalent in this movie I'm reviewing today. Despite being a prolific screenwriter, Koepp also found time to write a couple of novels on the side. His most recent, titled Aurora, was published in 2022, a dystopian landscape when the world's power grid was knocked out by a powerful solar storm, resulting in humankind having to fend for themselves against each other. His earlier novel, Cold Storage, also bear the similar world-ending premise with a bit of comedic flair, which would be adapted to the big screen by British director Johnny Campbell. In the 1970s, a NASA space station had been conducting experiments by sending infectious fungus into space for either nefarious or humanitarian nature. When it was decommissioned, a tank containing a mutated fungal organism fell to a desert in Australia, and the local community started a museum around the tank. A mishap occurred, as the mutated fungus was allowed to infect the museum custodian and spreading like wildfire, infecting any living organism in the vicinity. A renowned biochemist was summoned to investigate on the genocide with the help of a couple of gruffy bioterror experts. The trio were ill-prepared for the incredibly invasive nature of this mutated fungus, and someone barely made it out alive by the skin of their teeth. The fungus was kept under stringent storage in the government facility, and perhaps through the years with the musical chairs of personnel in charge, meant that this deadly organism had been forgotten. The fungal strain is now contained in an underground storage, with a commercial storage house occupying the land above. Due to reasons undisclosed, the top secret containment had been breached, and the fungus was allowed to infect localized wildlife like rats and deers. Eventually, the spread will reach the humankind, as it was the ideal host with the desired anatomical setup for a successful spread. While a couple of staff of the storage house on night shift was caught unaware of the threat looming on the horizon, Robert, one of the surviving bioterror experts, was alerted of the breach of the containment, and one of the few who had witnessed the catastrophe that would happen if you allow the fungal spread to go unchecked. In the style of Jason Bourne, Robert, a retired military guy with a chronic spinal issue, tried his very best to convince someone who held the resources in the government to stymie a catastrophe which almost no one on Earth might care about. In a high-octane climax, Robert and his young companions tried to destroy a deadly, otherworldly organism in the most dramatic fashion possible. Cold Storage might not be a top-tier story the creative juices of Koepp could conjure, and from the way the story was told, it really sold on the curmudgeon old warrior in action star Liam Neeson, fighting fungal-infected people while complaining that he was too old for all this shit. In actual fact, Neeson was the supporting cast, as the focus was on Georgina Campbell, who we last talked about in my review of Barbarian, and Joe Keery, also known as Steve from Stranger Things, playing a pair of colleagues who got acquainted on their first shift together, not knowing that they were on the precipice of doomsday of the mankind. The characters were thinly written. We just know that Campbell's character is a single mother who was savvy and well educated for the job of the storage attendant, while Kiri's character was at the brunt of the wrong side of the law. This unlikely duo felt like they would never say more than the usual formalities at work. Therefore, it felt terribly awkward with how their relationship developed at the end of the movie. I will find more rapport between Liam Neeson's character and the government Poindexter, who facilitated his journey to Kansas in his mission to save mankind. The bond between Neeson's Robert and his partner in crime, Trina, was also more believable, with Trina being played by English actress Leslie Manville, who was more accustomed to be featured in Mike Leigh's dramatic films than this quirky sci-fi body invasion horror movie. Director Johnny Campbell, no relation with his lead actress, was more well known in the British television world, even managed to bring aboard legendary actress Vanessa Redgrave, mother of Neeson's departed wife Natasha Richardson, in a role that could be played by any character actor. To round up this eclectic yet solid cast was Susie Bacon, who we last saw from Smile, which linked back to David Koepp's affection for Kevin Bacon that might lead to offering a role for his daughter in this movie. While the premise of an infectious, life-threatening fungus was not very novel, by confining the early onset of this infection in a desert or a storage warehouse where very few people would stumble into unless there's a need to retrieve something, there was no urgency of a pandemic. There was also a chronic lack of dynamics and antagonism between the characters like in a movie like The Mist. The backdrop felt mundane and negligible, yet you can argue that Koepp did not give us an archetypal zombie apocalypse horror. In many instances, it felt like paying homage to The Thing without any memorable visual or notable storytelling. The mutated fungus and its unyielding need to spread and infect all living organisms felt like a glaring MacGuffin. From the beginning, we could see how invasive and penetrative the fungus can be, yet there was no rule set on how the containment was like. Perhaps, as the title implied, it requires extreme low temperatures to immobilize the fungus, yet that was not very clear in the storytelling. The climatic scene at the end, with the whole throwback to a Roland Emmerich's End of the World overture, but I felt the hardy nature of the fungus could even survive that. Cold Storage failed in many aspects as both a horror movie and a comedy, yet it was buoyed by the sparks between the strange group of actors gathered for this production. This felt like a lesser screenplay from someone like David Koepp for sure. I believe the novel he'd written would be more coherent. This is a 6 out of 10. In Cold Storage, we have Liam Neeson's Robert being a curmudgeon old man, and the likes of Leslie Manville and Vanessa Redgrave. I doubt neither would be described as a crazy old person like in the second movie I'm reviewing. Vieja, Loca, or Crazy Old Lady, is a 2025 Spanish-Argentine thriller horror from director Martin Maragui. From the onset, we saw a young mother, Laura, on a road trip with her daughter sleeping on the rear passenger seat. She would be getting chained phone calls from her mother Alicia, who kept bugging her for a recipe, and through vexing conversation, Laura would realize that Alicia's staying nurse had gone missing. Worried about her mother's missing her medication, which was for her dementia-like symptoms, she engaged her ex-boyfriend, Pedro, to check on her. On a soggy night, Pedro's car was skid, and road-killed Alicia's pet dog, started his visit in an ominous manner. Pedro thought it was a prompt stopover to administer the medicine, and off he would return home dry and comfy. It was an uphill task from the start, when Alicia kept thinking Pedro was an ex-lover who left for another woman and was bitter about it, although it was verified by Laura that her mother had never brought up this past romance before. In the fashion of Stephen King's Misery, Alicia assumed the role of the titular crazy old lady and put poor Pedro into a barrage of physical and psychological torture. Vieja, Loca was a film produced and presented by famed Spanish director J.A. Bayona, who gave us my favorite European horror of all time, The Orphanage. The Spanish director, who would go on to make the memorable disaster drama flick The Impossible with Naomi Watts and Tom Holland, and getting the honor of making a totally unnecessary sequel to Jurassic World known as Fallen Kingdom, had been producing movies of late, putting aspiring Hispanic horror filmmakers into prominence. The screenplay, written by Maragui himself, brought up the societal issue with dealing with old people who were battling with brain ailments, and things went out of hand in the most extreme manner. It could also highlight the lack of attention and concern given to Alicia from the likes of Laura, yet you could see the single mother was struggling to get her life together. Through the phone conversations, we the audience could empathize with Laura and felt like the mental state of her aged mother was not as bad as it seems on the surface. A huge chunk of the movie was set in Alicia's creaky old house where she held Pedro hostage. The nooks and crannies of the house, with the old lady lurking in the corners, can be eerie, and she was like a ticking time bomb. One could never predict what she was going to do next. Seasoned Spanish actress Carmen Mora, a favorite of Pedro Almodovar, played Alicia with pomp and can be compared with Kathy Bates in the award-winning role of Annie. She was nearing 80 years old, yet had to commit to some action sequences as well as sexually gyrating on Pedro against his own will. However, complaints about the plot overstaying its welcome was not unwarranted. Despite some instances of Pedro having the opportunity to cry for help and incriminate Alicia, he just kept plodding on until the climactic end involving Laura's arrival. It also did not help when Pedro was hard to sympathize with due to the aloof acting from Uruguayan actor Daniel Handler. There was a moment of levity involving a stray bird trespassing the house for food. The ending sequence involving Laura's daughter, after being ignorant to all the craziness involving her mother and grandmother, was a bit sad to watch as a parent. The performance of Mora was the only thing redeeming in the movie, which could be more interesting with plot development and world building. As mentioned, it dragged on and there was nothing rewarding for the audience till the end. I could not offer more than just a 6 out of 10 for the movie. Despite a dour double bill for this week, it was still interesting to have more chances watching movies of different horror subgenres. Please offer me a like if you can, and subscribe to have more weekly double billed reviews moving forward in this channel. I did another Asian trips with the Ghost Whisperer trilogy from Thailand, with the first 2 directed by Tawiwat Wanta. Go check it out if you have not. If you are given a choice, will you be putting yourself in a hazmat suit at the face of a highly infectious mutant fungus, or be imprisoned by a demented old lady? Either situation, we just hope to be saved by Liam Neeson.